the WNBA.
Mhm.
Right now, they're in the middle of CBA negotiations. There has been a lot that has gone on, and maybe a lot that hasn't gone on, because we're waiting for a lot of answers. I know the players are for sure, but there was an update that just came out before this podcast, and we just want to know what is the update, Erica? I mean, I know you've been following this closely, so what's the news? Tell us the CBA
Yes.
news.
So for those who maybe followed the draft lottery when it was broadcasted, we did hear Rebecca Lobo say she wasn't expecting much to get done. She actually kind of implored everyone to, hey, let them have their holiday. It does sound like there were at least some talks happening over this most recent holiday. But I agreed with Lobo at the time of the draft lotto that we were likely moving to an extension, and we got the announcement of that extension late, as we were coming down to the wire. But it will be a 40-day extension. We had heard also, and our fearless leader over at women's basketball on the editorial side, Lindsay Gibbs, was able to put together some reporting that we've also seen reported elsewhere. But we're hearing that there were multiple proposals that were presented to the Players Association, including, things that were a little bit different than the current pay scale. Proposal included that there would be a guaranteed $1 million base with projected revenue sharing, pushing total earnings for max players to more than $1.2 million. And we also heard that the salary cap, among other things, there are other things in here, including minimums and maximums, which we can break down. But we also heard that, the proposal would include a $5 million salary cap. Now, the two sides did agree to an extension, so they will continue negotiating for the next 40 days, where a few different things, right, Alicia, can happen. They can extend again. They can come up with a proposal, or we can go into something that's considered status quo, which we, have been close to before, where it's just, all right, no negotiation was reached, and there's not a concrete decided on extension. So we just run business as normal. And then, of course, the other options would be either for the league or for the players to effectively go into either a strike or a lockout, which would mean that one side is stopping negotiations and is like, we do not want to move forward. We are at a place where we just can't come to an agreement, and the conversations aren't going anywhere. I've heard before in my reporting from someone from the league that is not necessarily something that we're expecting the league to initiate as far as a lockout. We've heard from the Players Association back over a year now, when they decided to opt out of this collective bargaining agreement, that a work stoppage effectively was on the table as an absolute last option. And it's something that the players for over a year have been thinking about as far as preparing personally. I've talked to players like Slim, Brittany Sykes, who's like, yeah, we had that conversation. We know it's a possibility. So that's impacted, how I'm investing or spending or saving money and things of that nature. But that does not mean that the players have been expecting or even want that to be the first option. It's a possibility, and they've prepared for that possibility. But as far as I know, and from the reports that we've seen, both sides do want to continue negotiating in good faith. And we know, as we've talked about before, things like the salaries, the salary cap, the revenue share, and even other things that I think are starting to be a part of the conversation more regularly and consistently, Alicia, are also, what are the expectations, maybe if you want to say kind of the minimum standards when it comes to entering and becoming a franchise? What are players going to go to New York and have one experience and then be in Chicago and have another. Well, I mean, and I didn't pick those cities randomly. We've seen reports are night and day from cities like New York to Chicago, or Chicago to Seattle, or Seattle to Phoenix. You know, everyone's trying to one up each other when it comes to facilities. And the sense that I get, and actually had a conversation with Terry Jackson where myself and a few other reporters got to ask her, well, what, if at all, conversations can the PA or is the PA having with these expansion teams? To which the PA and Terry Jackson said that some of the expansion teams have reached out to the Players Association, but that's not necessarily a part of the process to become a new franchise. And I think the players are wanting to perhaps document that once you enter the league, and once you are given a franchise, that there are just certain, again, minimum standards and expectations that every player should be able to enjoy, regardless of what market they're in.
Well, there's certainly a lot to talk about when it comes to that. And we have talked about this at length. The players know how important this contract is. They know that it is going to set the precedent for all of the years to come in this league, and to also capitalize off the growth that is happening that they deserve. And so from my vantage point, you know, with the extensions that have happened, kind of what we've been hearing, it's not gonna end anytime soon, because they just really don't have a point at which there's no point at which they agree very much from what we're hearing and seeing.
No.
And so when I think about it being December 1st and the fact that the expansion draft for the Valkyries was on December 6th, and then free agency began at the end of January, there's no doubt in my mind personally, and this is my opinion, I want to say for the record, that all of that stuff has got to be pushed back, and it's going to alter the actual season and alter, like, you know, what is going to happen with players in free agency. The 2 expansion teams that are on the way, like everything is going to be truncated in a way, or sped up, or things are not going to be as they were in the past when it comes to that part. And how do you see it impacting, you know, both the expansion teams and free agency? I mean, nearly everyone is a free agent.
Yes. And we've talked about this before. And I think that you could make an argument that both sides are keenly aware that getting a CBA done will impact these timelines, and that perhaps at times, each has played that to their hand. If you're the league, you know, you might want to be like, hey, all right, listen, we already know we're expanding, so let's get this done. And if you're the players, it might go something like, yep, you absolutely right. All the more reason why we have to get this done right. So just slight change, right, in the tone there. But what I think that is going to be difficult is that there's so much of this growth happening, and the league is going to want to capitalize on that because of, you know, they made business decisions based on that. And the players, again, also know that, and they don't want to miss the opportunity to set the current players up, and especially the future players, to be able to enjoy what previous, you know, players have worked hard to build. And so again, I can totally and completely see it both ways. It does make for an awkward timeline when you are Portland, when you are Toronto. It's a hurry up and wait game for them. They don't have any players and won't know until this CBA gets done. Now, how that impacts, again, the draft and things of that nature, will it push the season back? I think probably all of that's on the table, but all the more reason why, from what we're hearing from the PA, the Players Association, they want they use the term substantive movement from the league. I think that they're starting to, piece by piece, at least start to see some of the things that they've wanted to have conversations about be added every single time we get an update. But the players would probably say, well, that's why we opted out early. And that's why we wanted to have meetings early to get to the meat and potatoes. But you and I, right, we were at All-Star and players were telling us that they felt that they weren't really moving the needle to get to the meat and potatoes conversation. But because of expansion, because this is a league that is about to, at the next tip-off, be 30 years old. All of the optics here. This is a league that, you know, there's a lot riding on this CBA. And I don't know. I honestly don't know how it's going to go down. I wouldn't be surprised if we get another extension. I wouldn't be surprised if we go into the new year still negotiating that. It just is very uncomfortable because, again, 2 expansion teams, everyone's a free agent. And so what does that timeline look like? Is it even feasible to start the season on time? Because we've heard Tarika Foster-Brasby, right, be on the podcast and talk about the timeline is already an issue for the WNBA when they start thinking about world championships. Or I think is it World Cup now? Anyway, when you start thinking about international tournaments, including, of course, the Olympics and other things, and now you bring in more teams to the fold. It's not easy. It's not. I guess I'm just laying it all out here, Alicia, because I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. I wish I did. I don't know how this is going to go down. There's a lot that has to get done, and it seems as though the 2 sides haven't agreed on the progress that was made before we closed out the 2025 season, pushing a lot of this now into the off season.